We missed out on catching up with him last week. For some reason we couldn't get the satellite link between Washington DC and Horsham in Western Victoria. But Tim Blair from the Daily Telegraph is there now. Good to talk to you, mate.
Thanks, mate.
I've got to talk about your column today, a ripper really, talking about some of the lessons of Trumpism. And one of them is just that, you know, we're often told things can't be done. And he's already proving people wrong. The classic, of course, was Colombia saying they wouldn't take the plane loads of illegal criminals that he was deporting back to Colombia. And guess what? He forced them to do it. You know, politicians around the world might want to watch and learn.
Absolutely. I mean, we do have, and as I mentioned in the column as well, we do have the case in Australia of people telling us from the left, from the Greens and the Labor Party, that there was no way we could stop the boats arriving, that these forces were too big to repel. Australia's just a minor player. All we can do is accommodate illegal arrivals. Yeah. Then, of course, the Abbott government was elected in 2013, and it was stopped really quickly because, you know, things can be done. You're just talking about blocking barriers. You know, it's not that complicated. It's not physics, you know, which is complicated enough. But also, we're now seeing in the US, where for the entire Biden era, thank God it's gone, they were saying there's nothing that can be done seriously to stop massive numbers of illegals arriving. And it turns out, yes, Chris, you can.
Yeah, I mean, you're so right. I mean, it got even worse in Australia. Remember, Kevin Rudd said you could not send boat people back or maritime asylum seekers back to Indonesia without starting a conflict. And, of course, Tony Abbott and Peter Dutton and Scott Morrison came in and did it. And the thing even... there's a lesson in this not just for the left, but I think for the right of politics in this country. For instance, they're going to stick to Paris and net zero by 2050 because they think it's kind of politically impossible to do otherwise. Well, just about every other Republican, if you'd asked them 4 years ago, would have said it was impossible for the Republicans to abandon Paris again. And Donald Trump's done it with the stroke of a pen.
I've spent a lot of time arguing with Liberal politicians about withdrawing from Paris and abandoning unachievable climate aims because we're a tiny population. We don't actually create that much to make any difference, even if you believe in all that stuff. And the general response, and this is going back through several administrations, the general response from the Conservative side in Australia is that we want to be a good global citizen. Well, we're not electing governments out of Rome or Taipei or Berlin.
Yeah.
You know, we're electing them out of the Wimmera and out of Sydney and out of Brisbane. Yeah. Being a good global citizen doesn't matter a damn. Get things right in Australia and we'll carry on from there.
Well, that's actually how you are a good global citizen, by having a secure, prosperous nation that can look after itself rather than turning yourself into a basket case. Now, it's interesting at the inauguration to see all the tech giants there, all the billionaires. Now, Elon Musk, we expect him to be there because he's fully on board with Donald Trump, of course. But you had all the others there, including Mark Zuckerberg, who's been the sort of key leftist sort of censor of Trump and his supporters. There's a great... and they're obviously trying to curry favour with Trump now by getting rid of their so-called fact-checkers, which are really just ideological sort of censors. But there's a quote here from the Rolling Stone magazine that quotes an administration official saying there's a lot more ass-kissing that needs to be done. He just needs to prove himself. It's a good start, but he can't just snap his fingers and make the past not happen. So that Donald wants some more grovelling from Zuckerberg.
Well, this is again an example of how quickly things... We're just talking about how quickly things can be addressed in terms of righting wrongs. Well, you don't have to go back too far and many people on the left and some on the right even were salivating over the possibility of Trump going to jail. And now you've got Zuckerberg fearing his own potential incarceration. And who knows? I mean, I don't think it's going to happen. But it is just a fascinating change of events, a change of tone, a change of mood, isn't it? And, well, look, let's see what happens with that. Because, my word, Zuckerberg certainly put a lot on the line with his behaviour coming up to the last US election in 2020 when his platforms were very prominent in not allowing certain things to be covered.
Yeah, and denying reality. In fact, they talk about some things stay the same. If you look at the lefties on TV in the US, it's like they were 4 years ago. Have a look.
The Europeans that come here that overstay their visas are undocumented, but they don't come across the southern border. So I think there's a very clear message as to what this president wants the look of a criminal migrant to look like, what an undocumented migrant. And I think that's racist. Let me also say,
you know, they're so imaginative, Tim. You know, this is their response on Trump 2.0 is he's a Nazi, he's a racist. You know, honestly.
That was Sonny Hostin, one of the hosts on The View, which is notable mostly for running legal corrections on every second show. But what is she talking about? European migrants who arrive via aircraft and who aren't illegals, because generally when you show up in an aircraft in the US, you've got documentation. I don't think she understands the difference between illegal, and other people have made this point. She doesn't get the difference between illegal immigrants who are storming the borders or were, and legal ones who are flying in totally legit. So, well, there might be another correction coming from the girls next week.
We had the same thing here in Australia with the left. They always talk about the people who arrive by plane and overstay visas. They have visas. They're allowed into the country legally. That's a huge point. Thanks for joining us, Tim. Catch up with you later in the week.